Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening for this Welcome to High School 2022-2023 session. We are very, very happy to be with you today, and we are very happy to be able to have the support and assistance of Noura Hussein and Haseeb Afzal. If you require any support in Dari, Pashto, Somali, or Arabic, please let us know either by raising your hand or writing in the chat. Our goal today is to answer your questions, have conversations, hopefully share information that you will find helpful as you think about your children moving to grade 9 next year, or maybe you're a grade 7 parent thinking about the future. At this time, I would like to take a moment to work through our understanding and a land acknowledgement with you. So we begin by acknowledging the land upon which we learn, work, and strive for better is unceded and unsurrendered Algonquin territory. It is on this very land that Algonquin peoples have walked, lived, led, and nurtured each other since time immemorial. It is our duty to remember that like the trees who continue to weather storms and despite all odds still stand strong, so do Indigenous peoples today, while patiently and graciously allowing uninvited guests to live on and share this land. It is our duty to listen, value, and humbly sit with the knowledge that the only way forward is to take responsibility for harmful actions located and done in the past, who we are in the present, and how we want to live relationally in the future, and finally begin to sincerely listen and be guided by the wisdom of the land, Indigenous voices, and traditional knowledges if we truly want to live together in a good way. And it is in this spirit and with this sense of community that we are here with you this evening. I'm also wondering, Nirja, at this point, if maybe we could invite Haseeb just to maybe quickly do a welcome in Dari, and then Noura quickly in Somali and Arabic, just in case somebody would like clarification in the language that they're more comfortable with, just about how we will be proceeding for the session.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. So maybe Haseeb, if you could.
Sure. تشریف آوری همه شما را به این سشن معلوماتی که از خوش آمدید میگیم. تشکر یک جهان که تشریف آوردین. در این سشن در مورد اطفالتان، قسمی که در تلفن امرویتون صحبت کردم، اطفالی که از صنف 8 به بالا، صنف 8 9 به بالا به مکتب به لیسه می روند، در اون موارد صحبت میشه و شما هم هر سوالی که می داشته باشین، هر سوالی که باشه شما میتونین که مطرح بکنین و دوستایی که اینجا هستن و سوالاتتان جواب میگن و اگر سوال خاصی باشه که در این سشن شما سوال کردن نتونستین، معلومات شماره تماس و شماره ایمیل آدرس های همه از دوستا براتون داده میشه در آخر و میتونین که امروزشون مستقیم هم به تماس شوین از طریق ایمیل یا از طریق تلفن. و سوالایی هم که می داشته باشین لطف کنین که سوالای مختصر باشه، کوتاه باشه تا بتونه همگی از این برنامه مستفید شون و سوالای همگی مطرح شود. تشکر زیاد بازم از تشریف آوریتون. بخیر باشه.
Thank you, Haseeb. Noura, would you be able to let everybody here know that we have the different languages? They're welcome to put any questions in the chat or raise their hand. And if you could also introduce yourself, please.
Okay, thank you. مرحبا، أنا اسمي نورة حسين، واليوم أو المساء هذا حنقدم معلومات وافية عن المرحلة الانتقالية من الصف الثامن إلى الثانوية، أي هي الصفوف العليا. الندوة هذه تركز على معلومات لجميع أولياء الأمور وللطلاب اللي بالصف الثامن أو أولياء الأمور اللي عندهم حتى أولاد في مرحلة الصف السابع، وعايزين ياخذوا معلومات كافية عن الانتقال إلى المرحلة الثانوية العامة. ما هي الكورسات؟ ما هي المتطلبات؟ كيفية الحصول على هذه المعلومات؟ هنا موجودين خبراء أو أساتذة من المنطقة التعليمية من Ottawa-Carleton District School Board، والغرض من هذا أنه تعطيكم معلومات وافية، وبإمكانكم في خلال استماعكم لهذه الندوة أنكم تستمعوا، وبعد ذلك إذا كان عندكم أي أسئلة أو استفسار حابين أن أنا أترجم لكم، أنا ما عندي مانع، بس تحطوا سؤال تكتبوا أو ترفعوا إيدكم وإحنا حنقدم لكم الإجابات الوافية. شكرا لكم وشكرا لحضوركم. soo dhawaada, halkan waxaa la yidhaahdaa Nuura Cabdilaahi Xuseen. Waxaan doonayaa inaan idin sheego in barnaamijkan caawa aan dadka u soo bandhigayno waxaa loogu talagalay waalidiinta iyo ardayda u socota iskuullada sare, dugsiyada sare, safka 8aad imka ku jiro u gudbaya dugsiga sare. Marka waxaan doonaynaa inaan si macluumaad waafiya oo sharax waafiya inaan idiin soo gudbino. aad ka qaadataan halkan waxaa nala jooga macallimiin iyo mas'uuliyiin ka socota Ottawa-Carleton District School Board oo doonaya inay idiin sharaxaan waa maxay dugsigu sare, waa maxay shuruudaha ama ardaygu u baahan yahay koorsaad ku qaadanayo, sidee buu u dhammayn karaa iskuulka dugsiga sare 4 sano uu ku jiro, wuxuu u baahan yahay. Marka haddaad wax macluumaad su'aalo haddaad qabtid aad doonaysid inaadna weydiisid, halkan waxaan u joognaa inaan idiin wada jawaabno ama idin siino macluumaadka waafiga fadlan gacantaada taag, waan arkaynaa, ama su'aal meesha chatka noogu qor, annaguna waan idinku jawaabaynaa. hadday luqaduna kugu adag tahay waxaad oran karaysaa qof Soomaaliya raba inuu ii sharaxo oo halka slide-ka lagaaga sheego. mar kale waan idin soo dhaweynaynaa, cawaysi wanaagsan iyo sida waad mahadsantihiin. Okay, thank you.
So Noura Hussein and Haseeb Afzal, two of our multicultural liaison officers, thank you very, very much. My name is Sharan Samag. Nirja, I always forget to introduce myself, so I'll do that now. My name is Sharan Samag, and I'm an educator with the district, and again, very excited to be here. If we can just move to the next slide, Nirja. Something that is, I think, fundamental or critical in the work that we do with the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board is that we believe all students can be successful. Our schools should be places where children feel safe. Our schools should be places where children can explore who they are and who they could be. Our schools should also be places where children can envision a pathway that will take them where they want to go. And if they're not clear on what that path is, that they will have educators that will support them. My colleague, friend, Nirja Malhotra, who I will now be passing the slides off to, will introduce herself, and she will walk us through some of the important aspects that make up life in high school. Thanks, Nirja.
Thanks, Sharon. Yes, good evening. My name is Nirja Malhotra. I'm an educator with the Ottawa-Carleton District School Board and happy to be here. So I'd like to start off by just sharing a little bit about some of the opportunities, some of the special programming, and ways that we support your children at the school board. And so all of the guests we have here tonight, they're going to talk about that as well. I get the pleasure of talking about the English language learner programming that we have at our board. That programming, you will find, sometimes you'll see the word ESL and sometimes you will see ELD. ESL is English as a second language. ELD is English literacy development. What that means, and this is important because some people often don't know the differences, English as a second language are for those students that have had prior schooling. It could be schooling, your child could have gone to school in Turkish, they could have gone to school in Arabic, Somali, they could have gone to school in another language, but they've had school experience. For our students in ELD, those are when students have not had schooling continuously. There's been gaps for a variety of reasons. And so it's really important to know when you are in the school, which program your child might be in if they are an English language learner. And so that program provides lots of support. So we welcome newcomer students and families, and our MLOs like Haseeb and Noura, they help so much in supporting our students and our staff. They work for OCSO, but they work for our school board. We also have courses in our ESL and ELD program, which enhance the learning of English so that it's reading and writing and speaking English. And at the same time, students earn credits towards their diploma. And I'll talk about the diploma a little bit later. But one of the big things we want is that as students are learning, they are getting better and better at English so that they can not only move on to success beyond high school, but they can also help support their family if they need to. We have within our schools what's called ESL leads and instructional coaches. They help. And there's always one thing you should know when your child right now is in grade 8, if they are in ESL, there's always going to be communication from the school. Okay, so someone from the school will always talk and let you know what's going on. You'll notice in these slides, I'm just going to hover over them. Sorry, wrong computer. But you'll notice when you get the slides, if you click, and you click on them, you'll actually get the links to the individuals. So when I clicked on the principle of equity, apologies, it'll go back in a second, you will actually be able to contact that person. Okay, so everywhere that you see those links, you'll be able to contact someone. Now, our support of English language learners and all of our students is all part of our Indigenous Equity and Human Rights Roadmap, which again, you'll see in the middle of the screen. And so that tells you again how our students can be supported in our school board and what resources we have. And so that's really important because yes, students are here to learn and take courses, but they need to feel valued, they need to feel respected, and they need to be able to be heard and be in an environment where they can learn. The other piece I'm just going to mention before I turn it over to Josh is students with special education needs. For some of you, your children might have been identified to have a learning disability, or they might have an exceptionality outside of a learning disability. And so all students coming from grade 8 that have an IEP will have what's called a transition plan. So one of our teachers at high school, called a learning support teacher, will meet with the student's teacher in elementary, and together with the involvement of parents, will make sure that the needs and accommodations of each student are met. We have high learning expectations and a diverse curriculum for all students. Whether a student has special needs or an English language learner, we have high expectations and lots of different courses. And again, all teachers are aware of accommodations, what IEPs say. And we always make sure that we're looking at students' strengths, needs, their work habits, and learning skills. And so any questions that you might have if your child has an IEP, again, you can talk to the elementary school, but the high school your child goes to will have a learning support teacher that you can also talk to. And so we like to make sure that we are addressing those needs. What I'm going to do is turn it over then to Josh Pagan, who is one of our Indigenous graduation coaches. We have 3 in the board, and he's going to speak to you about his role and what our graduation coaches do.
Miigwech, Ani, Buju, Kanuia, Josh Pagan, Indigenous cause, Rama Minjikining, Ndonjaba, Ottawa, Ndoji, Wawashkisi, Dodum, and Anishinaabe Ndao. Hi everyone, my name is Josh Pagan. I'm an Anishinaabe from the Chippewas Rama First Nation. I'm Deer Clan. I've been living here, raising my family on the unceded, unsurrendered Algonquin territory for the last 16 years as a guest. I'm a member of the Indigenous Education and Learning Team for the OCDSB, and specifically, I am one of 3 Indigenous graduation coaches. My role specifically is at Canterbury. And so I'm here just to talk to you guys about what our Indigenous graduation coaches are about and what we do. Short story, we support and advocate for students, but to get into it a little bit more, It's we, to our first point, maybe we facilitate the process of student empowerment and self-advocacy through the organic conversations, interactions with students. To break that down, we connect with disengaged students and begin to use their voice to help see the change that they need and they want. We support students who run into conflict within the school and help them self-advocate for themselves. We support students to use their own voice to make change in the school. We create student-led workshops, supporting educators to connect community values and realities to education. Another major point that we touch on is we create meaningful connections with families and the family members. We're not only confident in contacting the grad coach, but also calling for action from the school staff and administration. To break that one down a little bit more, right? We're supporting community organizations and supporting students to continue to work collaboratively to best support the student and family. We're building trusting relationships, lasting relationships, truly, with families and the school community. Another major point, we connect students and families and help them identify small and major needs for supporting intervention. For instance, creating professional development workshops to assist with the lack of exposure or support in transitioning to the workforce. Supporting a student who is shy prior to getting support from the grad coach. And now that student is on their way to working on self-advocating for themselves. We meet the students where they're at. We create safe spaces for students. Supporting students with job opportunities, resume building, training, that kind of thing. Connecting students with community organizations to create workshops that reflect their needs and interests. Finding needs of the students. And finally, right, providing the youth and families with and helping them get support with nutritional needs. You can't sit there in class on an empty stomach. So we provide food security, helping secure financial support in the form of gift cards through collaboration with other staff. Truly, the bottom line, I'm at Canterbury to disrupt the colonial system and support all Indigenous students throughout the whole journey, not just graduation. Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. That was very helpful in terms of describing, again, as you said, supporting students in their full journey. It's really important. So we did have a question from the last slide, so I'm going to address that. And while I do that, if you have a question for Josh as well, if you have one now or later, you can pop it in the chat. So I'm just going to go back to the slide on special education because we had a question from Aber. I would like to know how can my kid who has special needs with an IP get support, and should I start to connect with someone in high school? When should I do that? So that's actually a really good question, right? Again, these concerns we have for our students, for our children. I have 4 children, so I understand that question, wanting the best for our children. And so the best way would be to connect with their current grade 8 teacher and find out from that grade 8 teacher who is the LST at the school. I'll put that in the chat in a moment. So who is the LST at the high school? Because that's the person that's going to be in charge of creating your daughter's IEP. That's the person that's going to talk to you and reach out to you about any needs. And that'll be the individual that you'll probably spend most of your time if you're trying to make sure the accommodations are being met along with the teachers. The LST is going to give not only your daughter, but you a lot of support to make sure that all of her accommodations are being met. So you want to reach out to the grade 8 school, find out from them who is the LST at her high school. and then you can email them. And you asked about when. I'm always of the mind that it's never too soon. Students are picking courses for next year starting now. So now is a great time. So I would say now is definitely a good time to reach out and ask them some questions that might need to be answered in terms of, support. What kind of courses are there to support your child if they need some support? Where can they go to if they need some extra support? So those are all great questions to ask your LST. Oh, thank you, Sharon. I see that you've put that in the chat. So yes, that is your go-to person. Sharon, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks very much, Nirjan. I think actually that is an excellent connection, because what's important about this session is it's the bridge. Your children are currently in a school, moving to another school if they're not in a grade 7 to 12 environment. So starting conversations now in order to bridge and build connection. So thank you very much for that question. So just as we move forward, our colleague, Taylor Benjamin, was kind enough to share some slides with us and information. He is unable to be here with us today. So Nirja, just the next slide when you're ready.
I flipped it. It's just on a little bit of a delay, I think.
Okay, so I'll start. So just like Josh was sharing with us, our Indigenous graduation coaches, we also have a graduation coach for Black students. And if I was to do this slide again, Nirja, it should be plural. There is more than one. So we have a few graduation coaches for Black students. Taylor's lovely face will appear on the next slide. And we have the OCDSB Sankofa Center. And this is a commitment to our students that identify as African, Black, Caribbean. It's an opportunity to help students really recognize and realize their full potential. We understand that identity matters. We also understand the experience for specific racialized and faith-based groups hasn't always been a positive one. So Taylor, along with other coaches, works alongside students and families to help not only reach goals, but to actually design and define goals and find those pathways. All the work that we do is very much grounded in that work of equity. And what equity means is not just saying that we care, but showing that we care in how we teach, how we include, how we listen, and how we communicate. And I think connection to community. We're very fortunate tonight too, even though she hasn't spoken, Tess Porter is with us. And Tess was instrumental in making this happen tonight, and also at one point was a graduation coach. So at any point, Tess, if you want to jump in, please do. Next slide is our image of Taylor. He said he couldn't be here with us in person, so he left us with an artistic rendering of himself. He is currently working at Woodruff High School, and he wanted me to say something that was very important to him. Even though he's identified in his work as a graduation coach for Black students, Taylor wanted to say he works with all students. And I think this is actually fundamental to the work that we do. We understand specific students will have special needs. And when I say special, I don't mean in the IEP category. I mean every child is unique. Every child needs to see themselves reflected, and every child should be able to work with who they feel like they can connect with. And I think this is the power of having graduation coaches. So I'm really grateful that Taylor was able to share this information with us. And it says it right there, promoting positive Black images centered around creativity and uniqueness. And those two hands holding the heart. I think it's a beautiful way for us to keep that in our minds. So thank you, Nirja.
I'll speak for 1 second since you invited me, Sharon.
Hi, Tess. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tess Porter, and I'm blessed to be here with this magnificent team this evening. And I just wanted to add as well, in regards to the graduation coaches for Black students, this is a Ministry of Education-led initiative. So this is a provincial initiative. So we have graduation coaches for Black students across the province. And these coaches are key, similar to the work that Josh and his team does. This work is key in regards to identifying and making action towards change in regards to leveling the playing field and pushing hard conversations and having those dialogues with families, community, and with our families of our students and our administrators and our educators, because in this work, they are advocates, and they're advocates for change. And the Ministry of Education has really identified and is moving forward in regards to investing money in these types of programs so that districts across the province can see the need of what has happened over the years and how certain groups of students have been treated differently. And then now they are recognized that, yes, we are going to support, and we're going to support those that will go forward with these hard conversations to affect change. So there are great support for those that are coming into grade 9 especially. And as Josh had mentioned, it's not just about graduating high school, it's about moving through high school and knowing that you have a private cheerleader there to support you along with your families. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks very much, Tess. I'm so glad that you spoke. I will also now hand off to Nirja.
So I'm going to talk a little bit now about high school in and of itself. I know that many of you may have already had presentations around what's required, the types of courses, but I always find it doesn't hurt to hear it a little bit again. And in a different context, because what is really important tonight, I think, is while we're going to talk about what's required for high school, what's really important is that we're telling you about the supports that we can wrap around your child. Because anybody can go to school and sit in a classroom, but it's the interaction with classmates and the adults that are there to help them and support them that is the most important. And so I don't want to minimize that at all, because I do think that it's so important for our kids to know that even though they go to this bigger building maybe and there's more students, there's all these wonderful people that can help them. And that's a message that, you know, I want to make sure that all of you as parents, guardians, loved ones can let your children know, because it's really important. So a few things though I will go over, because there's often in education, like in a lot of places, language that people use that isn't always familiar. And so first of all, what do you need for high school? When you're in high school, there are 3 sort of certificates or diplomas you can get. The graduation diploma from high school, the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, which is typically required for entry into college and university, is called the OSSD. That's the first one on top. Some students choose to do the OSSC, that's the Ontario Secondary School Certificate, as often there are students that would like to enter the world of work. They perhaps are not wanting to continue high school, maybe not quite even right now. It doesn't mean they're not going to go back later and can finish their diploma, but they might be deciding to enter the world of work or an apprenticeship. And then there's also a certificate of accomplishment. Whatever choice the student makes, again, it's done in conjunction with them. We try to make sure they're leading the way to their path, right? They're guiding it, and we talk to the different people that are involved in their lives. So once we look at where they're going, now this is, I know, a very, very complicated slide. There's lots here. It'll be on the site. I'm not going to go too much into it, but just share a couple of small pieces. What do you need to graduate high school? So the big thing is, if you're going for the diploma, you need 30 credits in total. And you can do that, this is a really important piece here, in 4 years or 5 if you so choose. Some students even come back for a 6th. I think, again, with shifts in high school, we often think that everything has to be put in together into the 4 years, but we've made many plans for students that have gone more than 4 years. We have to move at a child's path. and make sure that they can be successful in the path they're taking. So 30 credits, 18 of them, they don't have a choice, they have to take, and 12, they're optional. They also have to have 40 hours of community involvement, and they have to do that community involvement throughout their high school, outside of the school day. But they could start after grade 8. So if you're thinking, what will my child do at the end of grade 8 this summer? Maybe finding some community involvement is a good place to start. And then the last thing is the literacy test. That doesn't come until grade 10, so not really anything you have to worry about right now. If someone chooses the school certificate, they need 14 credits. And again, that's broken down on the slide, but it's there for you to look at. And we're not going to go too much more into that in the details. What I do want to focus on, though, is what are the learning options for your students, because they're coming from grade 8 to grade 9. And it is a little different because they're taking 8 courses. And with those 8 courses, they may have 8 different teachers. And so when we think about what courses do they take, there are actually 3 choices they have for courses. The first choice is what's called locally developed. We consider that course foundational. And what that means is that those are typically for learners who have gaps in their learning. And what I mean gaps, maybe they didn't go to school because they had a medical reason. So maybe they were out of school for 2 or 3 months. Perhaps they had to go visit a family member and they went to another country for some time. So now they've missed some schooling. And so we need to make sure they get caught up on that. So we have locally developed courses. Those courses, every course that they take are for credit. Sometimes students think that they won't, but they're there for credit. And again, can be part of a student's pathway. So you can have locally developed in math or science or English. And it's getting them strong in the foundation to move on. Then we have open courses. Those are courses that are interest courses. And they're for learners that in subject areas. So for example, an open course would be physical education, gym class. So students would take that at the open level. And a great thing that's happening now in high schools is there is a non-gendered gym class, meaning students aren't necessarily having to choose, a boys' gym class or a girls' gym class, because in grade 8, they were all together. So in grade 9, they can continue that way. Another thing that schools offer is they could do, instead of sports, because some students don't like that, they could do fitness. They can take art in grade 9, music, drama. Start talking about these courses and I get all excited about all the options students have. They can do food and nutrition, technology. There's so many options. And we like to encourage our students to try different courses. It's really important for them to sample different courses. And in grade 9, truthfully, there aren't that many choices for them to take. It's usually 1 or 2 for their electives. We call those electives. And they should try to choose something fun. Now, de-streamed. One of the great things that is happening in the province of Ontario is that our compulsory courses, like the math, English, French, geography, and science, is considered de-streamed. What does that mean? It means that it's a course that all students will go into. Students aren't pushed out into different classes. They're all going to be together. And what that does, it allows students to, there's activities and assignments and learning that happens at different, what's called entry points. Meaning, there'll be an assignment and maybe you're going to work in a group and there'll be a question, and that question could be something where you're going to start off drawing a picture. So you're starting with just a drawing and then you're moving on to the math of it and you go to the next step and there's questions. And so you're starting at one layer and then you add a layer and you add a layer. What it also allows when we do talk about de-streaming is different exit points, so that for someone perhaps in a math class that loves their math, they might extend what they just learned to something they did in connected to science class, or something that they were doing in technology, because that's how their brain works and that opportunity is there. So you don't stay in one box. You actually, it's opened up now and students can learn how they need to. The great thing about the math curriculum as well is there's a push, and there has been response, which is good, to make it culturally responsive. So we're actually taking what students are experiencing, what's happening within Canada, and we're using those in our lessons. For example, I know the math teacher at my school actually had gone up to Churchill, Manitoba to see the polar bears. And she used it as a lesson to talk about what was happening to the polar bears, their numbers, the reasons for it, and brought in climate change. And so I had a whole lesson on polar bears, who their natural predators were, and it started linking to many different areas. So again, the idea is we're not going to do these courses in a little box anymore. All students should be able to learn and learn from each other. So that is learning options. What else is involved in high school? And again, I apologize that the pictures are taking long to load. Once you get to high school, students can take night school. Again, typically these things are in grade 11 and 12. So things you don't have to worry about, but it's good to store in the back of your mind. There's night school. There's some specialized programs they can take. And again, once they get to high school, your child will be assigned a guidance counselor. And the guidance counselor will always let them know things that are going on. Usually there are Google Classrooms to tell them. There's billboards, there's emails going out, announcements. And so there's always all sorts of information. Students can do summer school. And in the summer before high school, there are some literacy and numeracy options for elementary students. So students can do some summer school options. They should talk to their grade 8 teacher if they'd like to do that. And there's also on Saturdays, this is what I want to mention now, if your child's interested in doing what's called international languages on Saturday mornings, that registration opens up early in September, and they actually get a credit. So you could take Mandarin, you can take Hindi, Urdu, you can do Pashto, you can do Arabic, Somali, Dutch, German, all sorts of different languages. Josh may know more than I do. I think they've started Indigenous languages. Josh, are you? Yes.
Yep.
Exactly.
And Ojibwe.
Perfect. Thank you. So they have started both of those so that students can continue learning language. And again, keeping some of their traditions and culture. So, right, that idea to keep who they are close to them. So I will try to not take too much time because we got a couple more people. Right now, your child is doing course selection. I'm waiting for the slide and before the picture to come up, and I'll talk about it. Once I'm done this slide, Noura and Haseeb, would you be able to talk about this slide? Because everything else is minutia, but this one is really important for parents to know. So once I'm done, hopefully you each can take a turn to explain the slide that's going to pop up once the picture comes up. Okay. So the slide that is about to come up is about actually picking your courses. So every year in high school, your child, loved one, needs to pick courses for the following year. And what's really, really important is in the process, who are you going to talk to? So you'll see in this bubble here, we have some bubbles. Know yourself. Who am I? I often hear from students that, Miss, I really love music. I want to take music. And so they know where their interests lie. So we try to always make sure we're fitting that in. Or, Miss, I want to do construction. I love woodworking. Can you make sure I get a tech class in there? And so again, students will often tell us, and we want to respond. We always talk to parents as well when we're talking about courses and families, but you should make sure that we really hear from the child. What actually is available? High school, it has so many opportunities. I mentioned some of those. International languages, students can go on exchanges, students can take summer school, night school. There's so many different opportunities. Cooperative education in grade 11, they can go out and get credits for working. There's so many great things that kids can do. What do I want to become? We work on where they want to go. One thing I will say And again, this is me as a mother of 4 children. When my kids say to me, "Oh, Mom, I'm trying to figure out options," which they're doing right now, I never really say to them, "What do you want to become?" Because at 14 and 15, it's really hard to decide. Sometimes I change my mind and I'm not 14 or 15. But one of the things I always say to them is, "What do you love?" And so I have a child that loves math and science, and she just says, "I love math and science. I don't know what I'm going to do yet." Okay, great. Let's keep that option open. And then I have a child that is an artist, and she loves to draw and she dances, and that's what she wants to do. And so we're not doing as much science, and that's okay because that's her strength. That's what she loves. We're keeping some options open, but I'm listening to her and telling her an area. So she doesn't have to tell me right now, "Mom, I am going to be a choreographer at the ballet." She's telling me, "I just love to dance and I love the arts." So it's really important to know maybe an area, but don't worry at this stage about saying, "What do you want to become?" Right? It's there on the slide, but that's not the detail you want. It's what do you enjoy and what are you good at? And then the last thing, what is the plan? And that plan, your high school guidance counselor, teachers, everybody will help you. The graduation coaches once you get to high school. And soon I'm going to mention the social workers who are going to talk to you as well, who are wonderful supports for our students. So lots of different options for picking courses. So Haseeb, Noura, hopefully I didn't talk too long, and who wants to go first this time?
Hi. I will try to manage. دوستا موضوعی را که خانم ملهوترا مطرح کردن موضوع انتخاب کورس ها بود یا انتخاب مضامین که ما در افغانستان میگیم انتخاب مضامین. این یک مرحله بسیار مهم است برای یک طفل که سرش مضامین، البته گپایش شما بهتر فهمیدین چرا که دوستایی که اینجا هستن اکثرشون انگلیسی یاد دارن، بازم به خاطر تفصیلات زیاد ما براتون میخوایم بگویم که سرشان
Haseeb, just unmute yourself. We lost you there for a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're back. It's good.
Thank you. بله خب قسمی که ما براتون گفتم که در افغانستان ما همیشه به این فکر می بودیم که طفل ما یا باید انجینیر باشه یا دکتر باشه یا یک رشته بسیار خوب انتخاب بکنه. خب همون شرایط مرقم بود، ولی اینجا موضوع مهمی را که خانم ملهوترا گفتن این است که طفل باید سرش تحمیل نشه که باید یک کورسی را که والدین میخواین و کورس و طفل باید انتخاب کنه. یک موضوع و دوم موضوعی که طفل باید خودش بفهمه که من کی هستم و پلان آینده ما چی است و اهداف ما که در آینده ما چی اهداف را بعدش باید بیارم و اهداف باید بفهمم و با فرصت ها برای من کدام فرصت ها مسائل است که من میتونم اونها را استفاده بکنم. موضوع مهم دیگه را که گفتی است که از تجربه خود گفت که 4 تا طفل کلان کردن و اطفالش با فکرهای مختلف با اذهان مختلف انتخاب هر طفلش فرق میکنن. این حال هر چی که اون طفل خوش داشته باشه در سن 15 سالگی و 14 سالگی و 16 سالگی ما نمیتونیم که به طفل خود بگیم که نه باید تو این درس بخونی. باید برش فهمانده شو و این گفته شو برش که تو چی خوش داری. آیا ریاضی خوش داری، ساینسز خوش داری، هندسه خوش داری و آیا همین که میخوایی که آرتس یا مثلا رسامی و خطاطی و نقاشی و چیزا خوش داری، هر چی که طفل علاقه داشته باشه به مو برش باید اجازه داده شود که پیش بره. دیگه موضوع مهم است که از مرحله اول که طفل از مکتب متوسطه به مکتب لیسه میآید، این مرحله است که او بتونه که تصمیم آینده زندگی خود بگیره و در عین حال اینم بفهمه که در آینده با همین تصمیمی که گرفته با مشوره والدین در آینده چی میخواد شود. یعنی موضوع اول موضوع پلان و رسیدن به اهداف است. موضوع دیگه که است این است که فرصت ها برش چقدر است. همون فرصت ها را با اون پلانی که داره با اون برنامه‌ای که داره چطور میتونه که به اون فرصت‌ها برسه. دیگه این مختصر اگر چه شما گپایش فهمیدین، ولی بازم ما مختصر براتون گفتیم. خدا کنه که خسته نساخته باشید. Thank you. تشکر. یا نورا.
Okay, thank you, Haseeb. Waxaan doonayaa inaan idiin sheego horta ardaydu markay imka ka gudbayaan safka 8aad ay u gudbayaan dugsiga sare waxay tahay stage ama marxalad cusub ay noloshooda gelayaan. Ogaada inuu markuu ardaydu ay u gudbayso dugsiga sare waxyaalo badan bay ayay arkayaan. waxaana ugu muhiimsan waalidku inuu la socdo ardaygiisa. Marka ta ugu horeysa talaabada ugu horeysa waxa inaad garataan wax la yiraahdo course selection ama sida inankaaga ama inantaada ula dooran lahayd koorsada qaadan lahaayeen. So waxa ugu muhiimsan inaad isweydiisaan what should I talk about, yani yaan maxaan ka hadlaa oo maxaan ka hadalnaa aniga iyo inankaygu ama inantaydu markay high schoolka ama dugsiga sare u gudbayso. Talabaadna waa inaan isnaahnaa whom should I talk to, waxa weeyaan yaan la hadlaa ama yaan la tashadaa markan inaan ama arday u gudbaysa high schoolka aan doonayo inaan ogaado waa maxay koorsaadkay qaadan lahaayeen, waa maxay ku fiican yihiin. So su'aaladaas waa inaad adiga iyo inantaada ama inankaaga u gudbaya high schoolka inaad isweydiisaan. So ardaygu inuu is ogaadaa yuu yahay, knowing yourself. Markaa waa inuu isaguna ogaadaa muxuu jecel yahay, muxuu dhinaca maadooyinka uu ku jecel yahay, ma wuxuu jecel yahay dhinaca science-ka, ma wuxuu jecel yahay dhinaca art-ka, ma wuxuu jecel yahay dhinaca tech and design-ka. waxyaalo badan iskuulka high schoolku koorso badan ayaa jira oo fursado badan u furaysa, laakiin ta ugu muhiimsan waxa weeyaan wax la yiraahdo balance iyo communication iyo xiriir baa jira. So ta ugu muhiimsan adiga iyo waalid ahaan iyo ardayguba sidaad inankaagu iyo inantaaduba uga gudbaan high schoolka ay u najaxaan waxa weeyaan inaad la socotid, inaad la hadashid, inaad markuu koorsaadkan uu dalbanayo inaad adiguna talaabada kala hadashid oo la wadaagtid waa maxay yoolkiisu iyo hamgiisu, mustaqbalka halkee buu u gudbayaa, ma wuxuu rabaa inuu noqdo engineer, ma wuxuu rabaa inuu noqdo dhakhtar, ma macallin, ma art ku jecel yahay. mawaadkaasoo dhan markuu ay kala dooranayaan taas waxta ugu muhiimsan inaad adigu la fadhiisato. talabaadna waxaa iskuulka jira wax la macallin u qaabilsan nasiixadaas iyo tala wadaagaas oo la yiraahdo guidance counselor-ka ah. Guidance counselor-kuna roolkiisu ama doorkiisu waxa weeyaan inuu adiga ka waalid ahaan iyo ardaygiiba road mapkiisii ama khariidadii uu u dhigi lahaa markuu grade 9 ka bilaabo ilaa iyo grade 12 u gudbayo ka 12aad koorsada laga rabo, siduu hadhow meeshii doonayay caalanka ama mustaqbalkiisa uu gaadho halkaa uu ka gaadho uu kala socday. adiguna ka waalid ahaan inaad ku dhiirigelisid, inaad talada siisid, inaad gacan qabatid, inaad waxbarashadiisii ogaatid. So course selection-kaasu waa ta ugu muhiimsan, waa talaabada ama nasiixada weyn aad waalid ahaan aad siin karaysaa. taasaan doonaya inaan idin sheego. أعزائي أولياء الأمور، حابة أنه أخبركم انتقال الطالب من المرحلة الابتدائية أو المرحلة المتوسطة إلى الصفوف العليا اللي هي الصفوف الثانوية العامة تعتبر مرحلة مهمة جدا في حياة الطالب، وكمان مرحلة مهمة ليك أنت كولي أمر ولابنك أو ابنتك التي ستنتقل إلى المرحلة الثانوية. في هذه المرحلة بيتم اختيار الكورسات من الصف الثامن. عند نهاية الصف الثامن المدرسة التي يكون فيها الطالب تعمل ورش أو تعمل لقاءات مع المدرسة التي سينتقل إليها الطالب، حيث يتم لقاء أولياء الأمور مع هذه المدارس، يتم شرح خارطة الطريق لأي طالب سيتم انتقاله إلى الثانوية من بداية الصف التاسع، اختيار الكورسات. فمهم جدا كولي أمر وطالب إنه تسألوا بعض يعني مين الشخص الذي توثقوا فيه في المدرسة بيعطيكم خارطة الطريق هذه واختيار الكورسات. وهذا الشخص اللي مسؤول عن هذه التسجيل واختيار الكورسات يسمى الجايدنس كونسلر أو الأخصائي أو مدرس. وظيفته إنه بيكون مستشار للطالب ولولي الأمر طبعا، لأنه ابنك أو ابنتك ما زالوا قصر، فأنت تكون جزء من العملية التعليمية لابنك وفي اختيار الكورسات. مرحلة الثانوية مرحلة فيها اختيارات متعددة، فيها كورسات متعددة. من المهم إنه ابنك أو ابنتك أولا يسألوا نفسهم، يقولوا إحنا عايزين إيش نوعية الكورسات اللي عايزين ناخدها، إيش اتجاهاتنا في المستقبل، هل حنتجه لاتجاه دراسة العلوم أو دراسة الهندسة أو دراسة مواد النظرية كالآرت اللي هي تسمى الرسم أو الموسيقى أو المواد الاجتماعية. يعني في اختيارات متعددة، لكن المهم إنه الطالب في بداية الصف التاسع والعاشر هي تعتبر بناء لبنة، بحيث إنه الطالب يبدأ يعرف نفسه هل حيتجه بعد الصف العاشر إلى اختيار إنه يبني على هذه الكورسات اللي اختارها، إنه يتجه اتجاه للمواد العلمية أو للمواد النظرية أو المواد الاجتماعية. فمهم جدا عملية النقاش، عملية الحوار، عملية التواصل مع إدارة المدرسة وخاصة الأخصائي أو الاستشاري لاختيار المواد اللي يسمى بالمدرسة الثانوية الجايدنس كونسلر. هذه ستكون خطوات مهمة في حياة ابنك وابنتك لنجاحهم وتخرجهم من الثانوية العامة. شكرا لكم. Thank you.
Thank you, Haseeb and Noura. You know, I sit here sometimes and I get nervous and I think, oh, speaking in front of people. And then I think, gosh, how amazing and how fortunate are we to have you here to be able to do this for us, because you're doing it in second and third languages or first languages. And it's, thank you so much. Just can't thank you enough. So we'll continue on. One of the things, and again, the next couple of slides, I'm going to just go through quickly. This will be shared with you. One thing you're going to hear about when your child comes home is, oh, I have to pick my courses in Zello. Yes, the X is actually a Z. Why didn't they put a Z? I don't know. So this Zello is actually the tool. It's just a website where students go to actually pick their courses. So they'll talk to the teachers will let them know they have to take English and math and science, geography, French, and they'll go in and they'll click on those courses, just like online shopping. So instead they're picking courses and they'll go through and they'll pick their courses and the teacher will say, here are the arts courses you can take at your high school. And so Zello, if you hear that word, that's just the way they do it. Students in grade 8 will be doing that with a teacher at their school. So you can ask them, can you log me in? I'd like to see what Zello looks like. But if you don't want to, it's okay, because when they're done, they will bring back a paper or a printout, or on screen via email, they'll show you the courses they picked. Okay, so you should make sure you look at them. I know we always trust our teachers to do what's best for our children, but it's always good to make sure that we double check. So there are links here again, where when you click on this, when you see these slides, you'll be able to link and see the little videos, but I'm not going to play those for you. You can look at those. And then the last couple of things I want to go over, are what happens after grade 9? You know, do we go grade 8, grade 9? What else is there? Lots of different things. And so this is where it's still always important, not just now, but as your child goes through high school, to connect with the guidance counselor and stay connected, because your child can do things like co-op, which again is like working, but they get credits. They can go and do a credit at Algonquin College while they're still in high school. That's called a dual credit. There's talk of e-learning that you'll hear more about in the next few days, and that's a course online. They can do what's called apprenticeships, schisms. All of these things are again, pieces of information your child's guidance counselor will share with them as they get older. Okay. The one to mention though is trades and technologies. Trades and technologies, that is things like automotive shop, cars. I wish I knew how to change the oil in my car, because it would save me $80 to $90 a month. I didn't take that course in high school. I ask my children to do it now. They still don't want to, but who knows? Maybe one day one of them will. But you know, woodworking, how to use tools, those are all important skills, and yet we often don't have our students, our children do that. Those are great elective courses for your children to learn skills that they'll really need in the future. So it's really important for you to think about all of those options. And then the last thing that I want to mention is that in our school board as a whole, there's so many pathways to graduation. So, you know, one of the things that you should know as your child, loved one goes through high school is when they start high school, there's lots of opportunities. So if you're thinking to yourself at some point, you know, high school, my child's not doing too bad, but I think there could be something more for them or something better. There are other options to graduate, and it's really important that you have conversations with your child, their teachers. If you know the graduation coach, again, go in, meet the coaches, ask to see who they are, the vice principals, the principals, everybody that's in that building, go in and say hello, because that is how you're going to be able to support your child even more, because you're going to know them. You'll be able to feel comfortable asking questions. And we want you to come in. We want you to say hello. I love when parents come in and I get to meet them and we talk about their child and all the wonderful things that their children are doing. So don't ever hesitate to come into the school, because we love to see you. Okay. Now, that's it for me, thank goodness. But we started off talking about all of the supports that we can have in high school. We had our graduation coach for Black students, our Indigenous graduation coach, and how it is so important for us to support our students. We've talked, you know, you've met our MLOs who are so important to us to be able to work with so many of our students and families. Well, we have tonight with us as well, 2 of our OCDSB social workers, and our social workers are so important in working with our students, their families, and sometimes working with the community and community organizations, and then helping within school. And so it's really, really important that we felt that you meet some of our social workers and they talk a little bit about what they do. So I'm going to turn it over. We have 2 social workers here. We have Sadia Abdullahi, and we have, oh, I don't see you on my screen, but you are there, I'm sure. And we also have Biftu Abdo, who is also here with us today.
Thank you, Nirja. That was lots of information that's really helpful for parents. And so this section here is going to be talking about what school social workers do, but also how you today as parents can be supporting and advocating your children once they come into high school. So like Nirja said, my name is Biftu. I'm a school social worker at the high school level, and I do support students in elementary school as well. And so our role is we do lots of different things. One of the main things that we sort of recognize is that there's a link between the student's home, school, and community life. This means that we have a holistic whole picture view when we have a student that is brought to us, right? So students that come into high school, we keep in mind that they are a sibling, they are an older sibling or a younger sibling. They have a group of friends. They may have a history in terms of their childhood around a certain lived experience that they went through. And so when we meet them, we keep all of these pieces in mind, and then we figure out the best way to support them. I think this sort of, like I said, big picture view is really, really important because students aren't just in a bubble. We recognize that there's an overlap. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. So our role includes many different things. So we work directly with students at the high school level, and this means direct intervention. So this would mean one-on-one sessions with students, and the type of work that we do can be different. So we talk sometimes about our emotions, how to manage and regulate our emotions. For example, if students are feeling really stressed or feeling really down, depressed, and sad, then we find different ways and techniques and strategies to make them regulate and manage these emotions. We also support parents. So you guys here today, a big part of our support is getting more information about your child, right? You guys know your child best. And so our information sort of that we collect from parents, we're able to share with their teachers. And so the teachers that work with your children are better able to assist them and sort of cater their teaching to your child based on their unique sort of character, personality, and what works best for them, because every child is different and every child has their own strengths and positive sort of attributes and traits that they bring to the table, right? The other part for parent support is if there's any resources or things that would be helpful. So sometimes we connect parents to food banks or other resources in the community for financial support, so for money or for even counseling if it's if parents need someone to speak to, need someone to talk about how to address a certain behavior of their child, or get a family doctor or something like this. We can assist you guys in navigating and getting help with that. And then we also support teachers in the classroom around how to resolve and address the different sort of emotional things that happen in the classroom, or the mental health, meaning again, like sometimes students present in class with anxiousness or they withdraw, right? So some students sit in the back of the class with their head down and their hood over their head, and they kind of withdraw, and we find ways to support that student and get a sense of what's going on in their life and how to make sure they can be successful in school, but also make sure their well-being is the priority. So that's a little of what we do. A big part is advocating. So we truly, truly believe that parents understand and know their children best. And so pointing to what Sharon had said earlier with that bridge, that you guys are the key people that we get information from. And then we do our best to share that information with the staff at your child's school in order for them to best service them. So here there's a really nice diagram that shows the overlap between school life, home life, and community life. And the student is centered in the middle. So just quickly, in terms of how your child can get a hold of a school social worker at school, they would go through their guidance counselor. So Nirja had pointed to maintaining really good communication and being in touch with the guidance counselor. The referral would come to what's called a multi-DT meeting, which is similar to what happens at the elementary level. And then sort of information is discussed around what the needs of your child are, whether it's mental health or whether it's having someone to talk to every day, or just have a check-in with. Then they would be brought to multi-D, and then the referral would be made to the school social worker. And then the school social worker would follow a process that involves first contacting you guys as the parents and giving what's called informed consent and describing what confidentiality means. So on the side of the slide here, we have that social workers respect confidentiality of their students while maintaining safety and respect. And this is really, really important. And why it's important is because the information that students share with us, it can be really private. And so we have a rule that we we abide by, which means that it's confidential. So we allow the student to feel like this is a safe space where they can share information with us. And unless they state that they're going to harm themselves or harm someone else, in that case, we'd have to tell an adult, right? Just for the safety of that student and others. But other than that, confidentiality is kept between the student and the social worker. Confidentiality is also kept between the file that the student has, which is called the OSR, which is a file that that follows your child from kindergarten up until grade 12. And so our social work notes, they're not kept in the social work file. It's kept in a different storage unit online, and no one can access that. So I know some parents are concerned around other people reading sort of what work is done with the social worker, and that information is not available to teachers or to the principal or the vice principal or to the guidance counselor even. So that's what we mean by confidentiality. And so, yeah, in terms of community life, I think Nirja pointed to that. So community resources, you know, our families live in the community. So we recognize that there's a real importance in making sure that parents and students and children know what services are available to them inside of their local community, right? So if you're living in the west end of Ottawa, what services are close to us? What community house can we access? What community health center is there? What food bank is there? What youth programs, homework club? You know, if there's a parent support group available, right? Like what time is it? So we help with connecting you to your local hub or your local community life. And so that's a part of what we do as well. And then home life, again, I pointed to the supports at home around parenting and just supports for just basic needs if that's needed. So I think next slide, Nirja. And this is, I will pass it on to my colleague, Sadia Abdullahi.
Thank you, Biftu. Biftu did a really wonderful job summarizing a lot of what we do. And again, just to highlight some of the things that we also offer are assessments, like she had mentioned. These assessments are really for students and situations where students may be requiring a different type of intervention or support in a different program outside of, you know, maybe their current school, or they may need like a more tailored schooling experience. And so we do often do assessments like that. The direct intervention is really about short-term counseling. And as Biftu had stated, you know, our goal really is to work with students on helping them develop coping strategies and helping them to learn skills that help promote their social and emotional well-being, because we recognize that if those things are not centered and they're not being supported, then it's hard to sit in a classroom and attain the education and the academics. So we do provide short-term counseling, and we operate from a perspective of culturally responsive care. And so what that looks like is understanding that certain students have lived experiences and backgrounds, and helping them to receive like specific tailored identity specific supports helps to ensure that these students receive tailored care to themselves. So we do have Indigenous specific social workers, and we also have Black social workers as well that support Black students and families. We also provide consultation, and this looks like, you know, connecting with teachers directly, maybe helping with classroom strategies. This includes classroom observations as well. And then we offer crisis intervention. So there are times where students are in immediate crisis. And so, you know, we do try to connect with those students to provide crisis intervention and to also support teachers if they're managing a crisis with a student. And the key part of our role really is the prevention piece. And that comes with recognizing that how we receive referrals, as Biftu had spoken about earlier, is through guidance counselors, is through a table called multidisciplinary. But the reality is what we want to do is support teachers in recognizing the students that need the most care before they get to a point of, you know, either being disengaged or not wanting to go to school, or, you know, before they get to a point where, you know, for themselves, that they are coming to the attention of us as social workers. So that prevention piece is really working with the teachers, working with their guidance counselors, coming up with strategies or ways that we can intervene a lot sooner. But oftentimes, you know, we follow within the board a system called the tiered system. And oftentimes, you know, students come into social work support at the highest level. So really what we try to do is build foundationally things that can support students. And if we're noticing that they need more attention and more supports, then, you know, the recommendation is for social work support. And that's with your consent as a parent. As Biftu had spoken about, informed consent is something that we really try to get parents to recognize and understand. And so that, you know, if you are accepting your child receiving social work support, that you understand what that looks like, that your child understands that it is a choice, right? I think the biggest piece for us is really the advocacy piece. It's also the helping students recognize that they are their biggest own advocates and helping them to learn ways to support them in understanding the system and helping families to understand the system as well. And that looks like parent support, that looks like family support, that looks like engaging with the community supports as identified by the family, by you as the parents, by you as folks who know your child and who know what's best for them. The last slide, if we go to the next slide, we did provide some local resources and there will be a link shared with everyone today. And the aim really for us is, you know, recognizing that we operate within the school system. So after a certain time in the day, we're not available, but helping to connect families to community-based agencies is a big part of what we try to do, because we recognize that it takes many hands to support one another. And we want to ensure that if we are supporting a family, that we're making them aware of other agencies and other supports that are out there for them as well. Thank you for having us. I really enjoyed this presentation and I hope you did as well.
If I can just add one piece, and I know we can't get into it in detail at this session tonight, but I did want to bring attention to the increased mental health needs of our children, in particular since the pandemic has happened. And since you guys are parents, you guys have firsthand sort of experience and day-to-day interaction with your children. And so keeping this in mind, I think it'd be worth stating that paying attention to your children's baseline behavior, meaning generally how their behavior is, their actions, sort of their day-to-day routine. And if you've noticed that there's a change in their behavior, or if their personal hygiene changes or is you know, a little less than usual, or if they're withdrawing from friends, then this is something that we would definitely advocate and encourage you to reach out and get support for. How to support your child, but also ways your child themselves can get support, just because of the sort of recognition of mental health needs now in our youth. We're looking for as much ways to be preventative and getting supports for children as early as possible. The other thing is for the consent piece that Sadia had mentioned. For the high school level, parents consent to social work support for children that are under 16. And once a student is 16, then they can what's called self-refer, in which case they would not need parent consent and they can sign off on their own to work with the social worker directly. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Then we will thank everybody that is here, and thank our panelists. Like you know, the amount of effort, work, preparation that you've all done. Like we are so thankful to have you here supporting all of our students. And hopefully we'll get to work together again, because it's quite a pleasure to be on such a beautiful panel. I did text that to Sean earlier. I'm like, look at this lovely panel we have here. It's fantastic. So thank you, everyone.
This is the beginning of a conversation, so please do reach out. Please connect with us.
Please enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'm sure we'll all meet again soon. Good night.